Sometimes you stumble on something really cool and you just think,
Yeah.
wow, how did I not know about this?
Right.
That's kind of how I feel about this whole world of Indonesian watchmaking.
Yeah.
It's like, who knew?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you think about Indonesia, you think beautiful beaches, temples, that kind of thing. You don't necessarily think high-end
You
watches.
don't know. But the more we dug into this, like we've got a stack of articles here. We did our research for this deep dive, and it's pretty impressive what's happening over there.
It is, and I think there's a real hunger I'm seeing for quality,
Mhm.
especially among Indonesian watch enthusiasts. They're really starting to appreciate the ins and outs of a mechanical watch.
Yeah, it's not just about having something on your wrist that tells time anymore. It's appreciating the craftsmanship. So where do we even start with this? I mean,
Right.
you've got some brands here like NAM watches. They kind of came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, well, they launched on Kickstarter, which is pretty common now for watch brands. And that's how they kind of blew up. And their whole thing is that minimalist, sleek design.
Yeah, very modern.
And they've even got a Star Wars collection, if you can believe it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
See, that's what I like. It's like that little unexpected detail.
Yeah, it's fun.
And they're really affordable too,
Yeah.
which is, not always the case in the watch world.
No, definitely not.
Like sometimes those prices are intimidating, but these seem pretty accessible.
Yeah, and I think that's smart because it opens it up to a wider audience. And it speaks to the fact that you don't have to spend a fortune to own a well-made, stylish watch.
Okay, well, that leads perfectly into the next one on my list. Brilliant watches.
Ah, yes, very nice.
Have you seen these?
I have, yeah. They have a really kind of an elegant but sporty look. You could wear one with a suit or, out on the weekend.
I was going to say it's like that versatility where it can be dressed up or down.
And they don't stimp on quality either. They use a lot of Swiss movements, even automatic calibers in some of their watches, which is pretty impressive for the price point.
Oh, wow. Now remind me, Swiss movements, that's the gold standard, right?
It is, yeah. For a lot of watch aficionados, that's what you're looking for. It's that precision engineering, the craftsmanship, the longevity, really.
So for them to be incorporating that,
Yeah,
it's almost like they're making a statement.
definitely. I think it shows that they're serious about watchmaking, even though they're a newer brand.
Okay, so we've talked about a couple of the bigger names,
Yeah.
but I did want to touch on some of these smaller brands, these micro brands that are popping up,
Yeah, it's an exciting part of the market.
because they're doing some really unique things. Like take Watch, for example.
Okay.
They were started by a group of skating enthusiasts.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And their whole thing is handmade, minimalist watches.
Mm-hmm.
But then they also have this line of, like, funky plastic toy watches.
I love that.
I know, right?
It's like they don't take themselves too seriously.
Exactly.
They're having fun with it.
And it's so creative.
And then you have something like Color Watch, which is all about minimalist design too, but they play with color a lot more, like bright pops of color.
So still keeping those clean lines, but adding a little bit more personality. I
Exactly.
like it. Okay, get this. Wooden watches?
Ooh.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It sounds kind of out there. But we're not talking like clunky, old-fashioned stuff. This is where things get really interesting with Indonesian watchmaking. They're really embracing sustainable materials, natural elements.
Yeah, and they're doing some really cool things with it. Like wood is definitely having a moment in the watch world right now, and Indonesia is kind of at the forefront of that trend.
It's true. It's not just like a novelty thing. It's like they're really making it a design element. Like you take a brand like Woodka, their designs are so vibrant,
Yeah.
so colorful,
They are very eye-catching,
and it's all recycled wood. Plus, they've made them water resistant.
which makes sense given the climate there.
Exactly. So it's like they're thinking about practicality too.
Right.
But then if you want something a little more maybe modern,
Mm-hmm.
there's a brand called Garvinos. They were one of the first to really start experimenting with wood in Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
And their designs are very sleek, very sophisticated. A lot of times they'll combine the wood with steel.
A nice contrast.
Yeah, it's really cool to see all the different ways they're using wood.
It's very creative. And speaking of unique approaches, you've got Matoa.
Ooh, yes.
They've gotten a lot of attention, and for good reason.
They have a really interesting story.
They do. It's not just about the materials they use, which, by the way, they're committed to recycled wood.
Yeah.
But they're also very focused on social impact.
Yeah, tell me more about that. Because they're actually based in a village, right?
They are, yeah, so witty.
And they employ local artisans, which is just
Wow.
amazing.
It is. It's providing skills and jobs to the community.
It's like that whole idea of ethical, sustainable business practices, but in action.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And their founder, Lucky D'Aria, he's got a very inspiring story. He actually started out working in a cookie factory just to kind of make ends meet.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
But he always had this passion for watchmaking.
Wow.
But he couldn't get a bank loan, so he borrowed money from family and friends and just went for it.
Wow, that takes guts to really believe in your vision like that.
Yeah, and it paid off. Matoa is now a global brand.
That's amazing.
They're selling watches all over the world, and a lot of that is thanks to the internet.
That's true. The internet has been a game changer for a lot of these brands, right?
It has, yeah. They really utilized online advertising, which allowed them to reach a global audience without having to go through, traditional channels.
It's like it levels the playing field in a way.
Exactly.
What I find so inspiring about Matoa is that even with that global success, they haven't forgotten about their roots. They're still very much committed to their employees, to their community.
Absolutely. They're proof that you can achieve both. You can be a successful business and still make a positive impact.
Exactly.
And they're not the only ones. Palanú Centaura is another brand that's really good at kind of weaving a narrative into their products.
Oh, yes. Tell me about them. Because they use some really interesting materials, right?
They do, yeah. They're all about Indonesian culture, the creativity of urban youth, and they express that through their watches.
I read that they use things like coffee grounds and cigarette butts.
Yeah, upcycled waste materials.
Which is incredible. Like, who thinks of that?
It's very innovative.
It is.
They're pushing the boundaries of what a watch can be.
It's not just a timepiece anymore, is it?
It's a statement.
It's art.
Exactly. And it's being recognized, too. They actually won an award at Milan Design Week recently.
Wow. That's huge. So Indonesian design is really starting to make a name for itself on the world stage.
It is.
And what I find really impressive about Palanú Centaura is that their watches are still relatively affordable.
Yeah, especially considering that they're 80% handmade by local craftsmen.
See, that's what I like. You're not just buying a watch, you're buying a piece of their culture, their artistry. And I think that's something that people are really responding to these days. That desire for authenticity, for something with a story behind it.
Definitely. People want something unique, something special.
It's amazing to me, we've covered all these different brands, but like stepping back, what do you think this whole rise in Indonesian watchmaking says about Indonesia?
It's a good question. And I think, we're seeing kind of a growing middle class there. And they're really interested in expressing themselves.
Through style, through what they're buying.
Exactly. And watches have always been a way to do that, right? But I think it's more than just like a status symbol.
It's got to be more than that.
It's, like you said earlier, it's a statement.
Yeah, like it tells a story.
And I think there's also an element of wanting to invest in something that will last.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Like it's an investment piece.
Exactly.
It's not just like a throwaway trend.
And then on top of that, you've got this sense of national pride that's really strong in Indonesia.
Well, absolutely.
People are really excited to support their own, to see Indonesian brands succeeding, not just locally, but globally.
It's like they're proving themselves that they can compete with anyone.
Exactly.
And it's not just watches either, right? Like we're seeing this in other areas too. Fashion, design, all sorts of creative industries.
It's like this creative energy is bubbling over, and it's exciting to see.
It really is. It almost makes me want to go out and buy one of these watches right now.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Just to be part of it,
There's something about it, that fusion of like traditional craftsmanship and then these modern designs.
The stories, right?
The stories, absolutely.
For each brand we talked about, they all have these really compelling stories.
Exactly.
It makes you think, like, what's next? What else is Indonesia going to come up with?
I don't know, but I'm excited to find out.
Me too. Me too. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. But for our listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever come across an Indonesian watch brand that blew you away? Leave us a comment. Let us know what caught your eye. Until next time, keep exploring and keep on diving deep.